welcome back to the Stick 'em Up podcast. Brundy, how you doing today?
Oh, doing not too bad. How are you doing today?
Oh, pretty good, pretty good.
Oh, Vegas just scored in their game. That's tough. That's tough.
Not as good, not as good.
Yeah, no. Not a whole lot really going on in the league right now. We kind of touched on it a bit before we started, but this probably won't be a super long one like the other ones have been, just because there's not a whole lot going on. But regular season does start in like 5 days, which is
So
exciting.
close.
So come next week, we're gonna have some actual regular season games and regular season news that we're gonna be able to talk about.
Yeah, so whichever team gets like blown out like 7-0 in their opening game, we're going to be right there to overreact and say that they're missing the playoffs.
Exactly, right? Exactly. Where do you want to start? What do you feel like starting with?
What news do we got around the league? We got Bedard getting his first goal in the preseason, not really his first goal like people were freaking out over. I mean, he scored, but also it was a preseason and an empty netter.
Yeah.
He looked really pissed after he scored it.
He looked even more pissed tonight. Did you see what happened?
No, I didn't.
So Chicago and Minnesota went to a shootout, and Bedard went down on Fleury and tried to he tried to make too many moves, and he kind of lost the puck, and then he tried to go looked like between the legs and upstairs, and Fleury just had enough and just poke checked his feet.
I was gonna say, did he poke check him?
Face planted, yeah.
Fleury,
and he just turns around and is sitting there, and Fleury gives him a little bit of a tap, and
yeah,
so that was kind of a
welcome to the NHL, kid.
A moment for him is one way to put it.
That's too bad, because I could have told you that was going to happen. I swear, Fleury poke checks more than any other goalie I've ever seen.
He's probably also the best at it.
Yeah.
I just can't get over, like, Chicago fans fucking glazing the team now just because Bedard's there. Like, they're already chanting, "We want a cup," and it's like, settle down. You barely beat Detroit in a preseason game. Like,
yeah.
And Detroit's
they beat
not
4-2
even
with
a
an
good
empty netter.
team.
They're not even a playoff team. I would get it if it came from, Edmonton when McDavid first entered the league, because they haven't won a cup since the 80s or whatever. Like, in the last 15 years, Chicago has 3 cups. Like, they're doing just fine. It's funny that they're chanting, "We won a cup." Like,
it's also funny because aside from Chicago fans,
without one,
every other fan base is like, "We don't want you guys to win anymore. We're done with them." So
they're the majority of people's least favorite team now.
They're right up there for me. I would say they're the team I like the least, but because obviously Vegas still exists. But anyways, aside from that,
Chicago's like outside of hockey for me, but like within the confines of the game, it's Boston for me. But like, they're like tied for me, but like for completely different reasons.
You're not a big Bees fan, dude. They have Lucic now.
Yeah, they sure do, don't they?
Luch. You love Luch. You're a big Boston Bees guy.
No, I did like Luch when he was with the Flames, though. I'll tell you that he was fun to watch.
Oh, speaking of teams that are shit, the Anaheim Ducks finally signed Drysdale and Zegras after making them sit out all of training camp. But I did say that their plan was to get them both signed to 3-year deals to line up with Carlson and whatnot, so they can kind of build their whole core together at the same time.
Do you think that's a smart move? Just like as a general concept, to have like all your best young players sign at the same time.
I understand it in the sense of like, you want to know that you're going to have money to get your priority guy signed, whether that's in 3 years, whether that's Drysdale, Zegras, Carlson, whoever. I understand the concept of wanting to make sure that you're going to be able to get them signed, But you're also looking at the same time in 3 years, Carlson could be worth 8 to 9 million. Zegers could be up around 9. Drysdale, if he does what's projected of him, and if he can stay healthy, he can be up there in that area. So that all of a sudden now you're getting that certainty of knowing you can get your guy signed, but you're also knowing that you're going to be giving out way more money in 3 years' time. Whereas you probably could have got Zegers signed to like an 8x8 or something, and now depending on with all these other players around him now, he's only going to get better. And so they're probably going to end up paying him more in 3 years' time. So I understand it. But at the end of the day, I think just get your guys signed. And then, you've got, at least your future and Zegers and Drysdale locked in long term. But I think they should have done that. But
yeah, I definitely think they should have locked him in long term.
Yeah, Zegers should have been. Drysdale, I understand, just because it's tough to a guy that hasn't played a whole lot yet in the league to all of a sudden give him an 8-year, but they could have, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, good for the Ducks for getting him signed, but have fun in 3 years when
they need to
have trouble. Probably.
Make sure in 3 years that at that time they have, and that not even accounting for other players that'll be up at that point, that they have like at least like almost 30 million in cap. Like they're going to have to make sure is free to like make sure they get those 3 guys if they want to keep them around.
Because like if you think about it, in 3 years' time now, Cam Fowler's contract is up. He's going to be 34 at that time. He might not even be on the team. I could very well see in his last year of his contract, they move him at the deadline. Gudas's deal is going to be up. And then that's really it. But they do have Mason McTavish. He's got 2 years left. So his deal's actually coming up before like Carlson, assuming he plays and a year comes off his contract and whatnot. And then Zegers and Drysdale. So then what happens with McTavish there? Do they put are they now like, I don't know, I'm just curious to see what they're going to do, whether they're going to, it's going to be like, hey, are you going to do a 1-year deal type thing? And then, we'll pay you. Do they do a bridge deal with him then? Do they sign him long term? I don't know what they're going to do.
I wonder if they
always make some just really weird decisions.
I wonder if they're going to try and get him to sign for less. Because, if McTavish, is doing really well and signs for, 6 or 7, then you could get a bit of a Tampa Bay or a Boston Bruins situation where one of the big guys early on signs for a low amount, and then that kind of keeps everyone else's numbers slightly lower.
I doubt it. I see if McTavish, gets to where he's projected, he's probably going to be up and around an $8 million player.
Yeah.
And I think at the end of the day, like their core is, Zegers, Carlson, and Drysdale. I think is kind of going to be their big 3, because like Zegers and Drysdale could have easily just signed 2-year bridge deals, but I was very certain that if it was going to be 3 to then line up with Carlson. So it's kind of evident that those are kind of the 3 guys that they want to have on the same page, at all times, and know that they've got their future and those 3 secured.
Yeah.
But if it could work out for Anaheim, I don't know. It's 3 years away now, so it's tough. Tough to say.
Like, who knows? All 3 of those guys might all get 10 million, and that might be a good deal for them at that point, because the cap's supposed to go up quite a bit over the next few years.
I think it's reported for next season now. Next offseason, it's going to go up because I think it's at 83 or 83.5 or something like that right now. It's supposed to go up to around 87.5 to 88.
Yeah.
So
I'm looking at it right now, and that's what it's going to. It's an increase of 4.5 mil.
Yeah. So that's good that it's going to go up, and it's going to make it easier. But I think actually I can't even fully say that with Toronto because they've still managed to put around a good team. But we see where teams struggle when you're paying 3 or 4 guys like in the double digits. It can be hard to secure create like a good depth system below them where I mean, they make it work, but you also look at what at the trade deadline, what they had to give up to have guys come in on retained salaries and whatnot. And they managed to luck out, and Mark Giordano was like, I'll sign for league minimum. Let's just win a cup. Like, you
Yeah.
don't get that very often. And then even when you do it, it's like what they did. You have to give up even more assets um, to get those guys that you want to get. So there is disadvantages to it still. Like, it can be done, but it comes at a pretty hefty price and a good chunk of your future.
Yeah, it's
But
it'll
that's
definitely be
how it goes. I don't feel bad for Toronto in the slightest.
no. Um, yeah, I'm really hoping that with the news of him saying that's Gary Bettman saying that around $4.5 million is how much the cap will increase next year. Um, I'm hoping that sooner rather than later, Tampa's gonna send something to Stamkos, but it still really sounded like he's gonna wait until the off season or later in the year.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like anything is going to really be on the table this season. I feel like now that training camp's pretty much done and nothing's happened, I don't see many talks happening during the regular season now. It's probably going to be a wait till next. And I mean, it's not uncommon. Like his last deal he signed, it was kind of coming right up on the cusp of he needs to get a contract signed or he's going to free agencies. So it very well could
Yeah,
happen again that it comes down right to the very end. And I think even if it's 2 days before free agency or something, I think if Tampa Bay offers him a deal that he thinks is fair to him, I think he'll sign.
yeah,
I don't think
and
he's going to be bitter of how long it took. Like I think he's gonna
I would hope not.
he's gonna get it signed as long as it's a fair deal to him. Like if they come and do what Anaheim did to Zegras at first, or what Ottawa's doing to Shane Pinto, and which for Shane Pinto, I mean, just sign the deal at that point. Um, but with Stamkos, I think as long as it's a fair deal to him, I think he'll have no problem signing.
Yeah,
I would say with Shane Pinto though, he still hasn't signed with Ottawa, and apparently they offered him a 1-by-1, and he felt that offer is insulting. But it's like he's also really like he's looked solid in when he's played for the Senators, but he hasn't been out of this world incredible. And I mean, look at a guy like Kevin Labanc, who a couple years ago, well, actually it's more than a couple years ago now, but he had his best season in the league and was a beast in the playoffs, setting that record. And he signed a 1-by-1, and then at the end of that year, he got a pretty good contract in because the team was like, "Hey, we're in a bit of a cap bind, and you stepped up and said you'll take a discount for us, so we're rewarding you for it." So I don't see why he doesn't just do that and actually has a chance to play this year.
I guess, but they that's not guaranteed. If he falls off, they might say, well, you're not worth anymore, and you never know what's going to happen with
But
injuries.
then
And I'm just looking at
that's not even a player you want at that point. Then if he doesn't have any confidence in himself to be a part of the team, like then how can he ask for more money when he doesn't even have the confidence that he's gonna have a good season or be a big part to the Senators team?
I mean, you just never know what's gonna happen. It's so volatile that at a moment's notice you could get injured, and he doesn't have the money yet to be secure. And he played all 82 games last year, 20 goals, 35 points. That's worth much more than 1-by-1.
I mean it, yes, but it's also at the same time he's kind of the odd guy out for Ottawa. And so I don't think they're,
I
I
guess, but
I, I
that's
don't know what
not
he's
his
asking
fault. He
for.
shouldn't be taking the discount for somebody else.
No, but at this point it's kind of coming down to he's either gotta, just sign, or he might not even end up playing for a whole year. And then at that point, then you're really just because Ottawa's
Yeah,
only got 1.7 in cap space.
yeah. If
So
they're
they don't have much to work with. I mean, there's still rumors that Matthew Joseph, they're trying to trade him, which he's kind of the only guy that makes sense to get moved.
yeah,
Um, but
yeah. It's either it really sounds like either he just bites the bullet and re-signs and signs for the 1-by-1, or if they can't move Joseph, then maybe he ends up asking for a trade out or something. Like if they're really not able to make
Yeah.
it work, who
Yeah,
knows?
I don't know what's going on, but if I'm him, I think at that point you just, you know, take the one by one for the year, go out there, do even better, be like, look at this, I just did it back-to-back seasons. If Ottawa isn't going to pay you, you can easily get paid from somewhere else. Whether that's Ottawa ends up trading you or they just don't qualify him, but I think it's coming up so close to the season where he's just got to sign if he wants to play. Um, because sitting out an entire year, then his value just becomes at an all-time low.
Yeah.
So, I mean, as tough as it is, it's just sign the deal and then get to play, and then you go out there and prove that that you're the player that you are, and then you can set yourself up good after that.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that goes down.
And that's usually the premise around those kind of deals, like the one by ones. It's talked about beforehand,
Yeah.
like, hey, you do us one, we'll do you one down the road next year when we can make it work where we can actually get you paid fairly, type of thing. But because then it kind of evens out, to help them put out a better team this year with the guys they got, and then next year when they can move guys out on deals that are now easier to move, but I don't know. There's always something with Ottawa.
Yeah, it's funny how quickly they went from a team that refuses to spend money to now they don't have enough cap room. Like,
Yeah, it was a quick switch around for them, honestly. But that's good. It's good to see that they're being competitive.
yeah. Yeah, you never want to see a team fighting to try and get above the cap floor. You want to see them fighting to stay under the salary cap.
Yeah, exactly. But aside from that, what else do we do? Just kind of have our predictions for
That's all I can think of,
awards for the
really.
seasons. I think that's it's really kind of all we got.
Unless we want to talk about Jonas Johansson's
No, I don't care to.
back-to-back shutouts.
But that's the thing is it's so tough to gauge with preseason, like just because it really like
Yeah.
I don't know. I always like people always say like, oh, look at this, what this guy did in preseason, this and this, but it's like, yeah, but you got to look at the roster he's up against, and teams are trying out different stuff. Like, I mean, sure, teams like to win in the preseason, but it's more so they're trying to gauge what they have of their guys out on the ice at that moment and who works well and what kind of system they want to run with. So
Yeah.
I don't look into it too much, but I mean, still two shutouts when they're in a Lightning are in a position where they don't really have a goalie aside from Vasilevsky. It's nice for them to at least see that they've got a guy that they know they can that can get it done when needs be. But again, it still comes around to how much can you get out of them, type of thing.
Yeah. At the very least, I think it shows that, until he's really bad for a stretch, for the next 10-ish weeks, we have a 1A or a 1B at least.
Yeah, I think they still
that's all we need him to be. We don't need anyone to be the bona fide starter for the next while. We just need two goalies who can get us through.
And so I do still think that they need to go out and even a guy like I talked about before, Aaron Dell, he got released from his PTO with Columbus. I think that's largely just due to them claiming Spencer Martin on waivers, but that's still even a guy that they can bring in that can still kind of work in a tandem with Johansson if need be, because I don't really have much. And then you also got to take into account, when Vasilevsky comes back, you've got to have a goalie on your roster that you're okay with, going on waivers. I don't know what their whole situation is with all their goalies on who's waiver eligible, who isn't. But that is also something to consider, because you don't want to have, a young, decent goalie coming up that's waiver eligible, and then you maybe end up having to put them on waivers and you lose them.
Yeah.
So
I don't think they have to worry about that, really. It sounds like Hugo Alnefelt has already been sent back down, and he's our big goalie prospect. who's going to be Vasi's backup in the future. So he's already down and through waivers. They didn't like what they saw, or they liked what they saw in other guys better in the preseason. So it sounds like it's going to be Johansson and Tompkins for the foreseeable future. I'm hoping that we might pick up Martin Jones. I think I'd be fine with that. But
I think he's probably the best of the bunch available.
Yeah,
that they can get. But they still got, actually they played the very first game of the season against Nashville. So either someone on Tampa or Nashville will get the first goal of the season. So that'll be fun to pay attention to. But they still got a couple days to figure out, what they're going to do and how their goaltending situation is going to work out.
I hope Tanner Jeannot drops a hat trick on his big return to Nashville.
I just hope he has a good season in general. I hope he can just stay healthy and play his game, because the trade just looks so bad right now. But knowing what you can get out of Jeannot, especially on Tampa Bay, like it could turn out to it could look good for Tampa Bay. It's just he's really got to get it going this season.
Yeah, I remember when that trade got announced, I was so this is not even cope. This is I was genuinely so jacked, because I hadn't seen what he had done that year, but I remember doing a lot of fantasy stuff and watching his rookie year and being like, I've never heard of this guy. He's some rookie and he's hitting everything that moves, and he had 20 goals or something, or close to it. He was doing all that stuff that you want, and
he looked like a good up-and-coming power forward that can fight, hit, score, kind of do it all.
Yeah, and then we traded for him, and he's also still an RFA. So, and I was like, man, this looks like it might be insane. And a lot of people pointed out, all the picks plus Cal Foote, but realistically, Cal Foote was a throw-in because we didn't want his salary cap at that point.
Nashville let him walk. He went to the Devils. He just got put on waivers. The big reason Nashville was able to get the amount of picks back that they did for him was solely, not only the fact that Jeannot's a good player, and Tampa Bay knew what he brought. It didn't really work out last season, but the big thing was the fact that, first of all, he was an RFA, so Tampa still owns his rights. And secondly, he was still coming in on his rookie deal, so he was making nothing. And that was huge for Tampa going to the plus, where they didn't have a lot of money to work with. So, bringing in a guy that can be a 20-goal scorer on the third line that can hit, fight, get in there, mix up, do it all, that's valuable. It's very similar to, San Jose getting a first-round pick for Barclay Goodrow a couple years ago. Guy that's always just been a third, fourth liner. You're going to get maybe 10 goals from him, 20 to 25 points. But, the leadership he brought, the physicality, the defensive play of him.
Just a real bastard to play against. Nobody wants to be line matched against guys like that.
Yeah, and then his cheap contract was, was just something that made him even more valuable.
Yeah, I'm definitely still hopeful for him. I'm hoping that he'll have a big year playing with Nick Paul on that third line.
Yeah,
maybe with Mikey Eyssimont. I think that could be a really fun line to watch.
I think Eyssimont. I really do like Eyssimont. I thought he was awesome in San Jose. I was kind of upset when they traded him, but it was a good move by Mike Gurr. You claim a guy off waivers and turn it into a 4th-round pick in the end is solid.
Yeah.
But I don't think he's a third liner. I think he's more one of those guys you have on the 4th line that you can trust on a nightly basis. Yeah. But
I think his play style just fits in well with Nick Paul and Tanner Jeannot. That's just maybe not even in the regular season, more of a bastard line to play against in the playoffs. But I see what you're saying. It's funny because tonight I'm pretty sure he played on the left wing with Point and Kucherov.
Oh, did he?
Obviously, just preseason shenanigans, and Hagel wasn't playing, but
yeah. Just because I mentioned it, and I'm kind of off on a different topic here. I got one more thing before we go into predictions for the upcoming season and whatnot.
Sure.
The New York Rangers. So what do they do at this point with Lafreniere? Because, preseason's wrapping up. In 4 preseason games, all he's got is 1 assist. He's a -4. He's going to be turning 22 pretty soon here in about a week or so. Like, what do they do with him at this point now? Because I think we're past the point now where people make their man. Well, he was a first overall pick. Like he's still a first overall player. Like realistically, no, he's not, because he's at the same point in his career now when Yakupov was with the Oilers, and it wasn't working there. And people are like, well, he's still a first overall pick, yeah, but he's fucking bad. So, and there's just nowhere for him to move up in the lineup. Like he's constantly going to be third liner, maybe sometimes fourth liner, no power play time. Like, at what point do they just cut their losses and try to get the most back that you can get for him right now?
I think they need to do it soon. I think you still can get a good, decent haul back for him because of that first overall pedigree. I think it's as soon as 1 more year or even halfway through this year where that wears off. But I think there would still be enough interest if they said we're looking to shop him. I can't remember who. It was before Jack Eichel went to Vegas. There was talks of Eichel going to New York, and Lafreniere was one of the untouchables in that trade that they talked about. And that just looks so bad looking back on it, because, man, could you imagine Eichel on that team? And, I mean, have fun with Lafreniere or whatever he's doing. I think they could still get a decent little something back for him. And you know what? At this point, that Lafreniere is not... He might still end up being a great player, but if he does, it's not going to be with the Rangers. It doesn't work with their system. It doesn't work with their current roster. It's not going to happen. So, you know what?
Yeah.
If he's only going to be a fourth liner for you, when you trade him, all you need to get back is a fourth liner or better, and you've won the trade. It doesn't matter if he goes somewhere else and puts up 80 points per year, because he wasn't going to do that for you.
Yeah, exactly.
It doesn't matter if he's lighting it up in, I don't know, Seattle, if you go and win the frickin' cup this year with some of those pieces you get back. So, realistically, even though you might be getting less overall value in the trade, I think you make the trade and you try and win the cup while your team is at its peak.
I completely agree. I'll also say, even if you're moving Lafreniere, well, I don't think his value is, at an all-time high. Like it's honestly quite low. But if you're the Rangers, there's a world. I don't know what team, but I can see a trade where the Rangers move out Lafreniere. Whatever the return is, I don't know. But and it's no secret that the Rangers kind of want to trade Barclay Goodrow, which is where this whole conversation originated from, was talking about him. There's a world where they could include him in a trade with Lafreniere, because now the other teams that entertained in the idea of getting Lafreniere and maybe seeing if they can make it work with him there. But then the Rangers can also get rid of Goodrow's contract, which is a little over $3.6 million for another 4 years, which, again, a guy who's kind of a third, fourth line. Like, I know he's a captain on their team, but he's still a third or fourth liner making that money, and he's not putting up the numbers that he was with Tampa Bay.
Yeah.
So if you're the Rangers and you can find a way to trade Lafreniere and Goodrow for maybe like I don't even know what the return could be, because I don't know what people are viewing Lafreniere's value at and what the baggage of taking on Goodrow is, but like it's not out of the realm that the Rangers could make that work, and then still, because you've still brought in guys like Blake Wheeler, Nick Bonino in the offseason, who are Blake Wheeler could still be a very effective second, maybe even a fringe first line Winger, depending on their system. Bonino's a very good fourth line center, kills penalties. So like they've still got depth they can work with, even moving out Lafreniere and Goodrow. So, but like, I just want to see Lafreniere get traded so bad.
Yeah, I genuinely do think he will become a very good, at the minimum, a top 6 player somewhere else. I feel like we've seen so many rookies stagnate in New York, and it doesn't help that there's no room in the lineup for them to move up unless they are already playing at an elite level. Like,
Yeah. And I won't even say that like he'll never become a good player, because he's in a very similar situation that Tage Thompson was in. And he's reaching that point in his career kind of around when Tage Thompson was moved. And then we saw what Tage Thompson went on to do with Buffalo. And so I think that there's still the chance for Lafreniere to turn his career around and actually become maybe not the player everybody thought at first, but he can still become a very good and valuable player. But it'll never happen on the Rangers. And if it does, then it comes at the cost of Capo Caco. Then he becomes then you never know what he could have became, because he's not going to get that shot. So
yeah.
And it kind of sounds like Capo Caco's the more valuable player to them.
Yeah.
It sounds like they're
absolutely
more
right now,
in
as he
his
should
corner.
be at this point.
So I think the Rangers just got to be like, you know what? We shouldn't have even got the first overall pick to begin with, because they were technically a playoff team in the eyes of people in the bubble and whatnot. So it's dumb that they still got a chance to win the cup, but they also got a first overall pick out of their pick.
Yeah.
I didn't like that to begin with.
No.
So, I mean, you look at it,
Toronto
it's not
was
like
close
it's
to
a
getting him.
loss, but
Like,
yeah. And again, I think we probably would have seen kind of a similar thing in Toronto. Maybe Toronto would have given him power play time.
I think he would have gotten at least a chance at some point to play on because he's a left winger, right? I think he would have got at least a chance to play with Marner and Matthews. And if it worked, and they've been looking for a good left winger forever to stay with those guys. If that clicked, who knows? Toronto might already have a cup if that really worked out as he was projected to be. But
yeah.
One team that immediately sticks out in my mind, and it fits their timeline, and it really fits their MO. Montreal. Yeah.
And that was my first team, because I did think they can make it work to like take on Goodrow's contract
and bring in Lafreniere, and they wouldn't want to give up a first because they're still rebuilding, but you know what? Maybe for New York, just to get both those salaries out so they could bring in somebody else, and maybe all you take back is a second, and it's going to be a good second or something.
The thing is with Montreal is it's very possible. I'm not like it's probably not going to happen, because I think that would just break the heart of Montreal fans. But like, we know Carey Price is probably most likely 99% sure never going to play again. The Rangers have the money. They could easily take his contract. He doesn't count towards the cap hit, but they can pay him. And then I think that would go a long way with really like now boosting that value, that they could get a decent return from Montreal.
But and you know what? Teams love that LTIR money. So that Montreal would make a lot of sense.
Montreal wouldn't trade their first round pick. And if they did, it would obviously be conditional, like top 10 protected or whatever.
Yeah, it'd have to be protected. And you know what? They'd probably have conditions on it that it's protected, and the next one, if it slides, is also protected.
Yeah, so like it's possible, and that's kind of the one team that I see making the most sense. Like if Lafreniere becomes available, Montreal is going to be all in. Like that's right up their alley.
Yeah.
And if I'm the Rangers, it's just you got to pull the trigger eventually, because Lafreniere's not getting younger. He's clearly not getting better on the Rangers, and they just don't have a spot for him, really.
I mean, at the end of the day, he's a liability. Like, they're playing him on fourth line, but that's only because he was a first overall pick and they want it to work. They're hoping it changes overnight. He's barely playing at replacement level. Like, he barely belongs in the NHL, less alone in that top 6 where we think he might be able to thrive. So
Exactly. Yeah.
if it sucks with all that perceived value, but if that trade is what's going to make your team better, do the thing that makes your team better.
Exactly. I mean, I think it just makes the most sense for the Rangers, especially if you're able to make it work to get out those bad contracts and have more cap space to work with. I think that's a huge win for them. Will they do it? Probably not, because Lafrena's still a big name because he's a first overall pick. And the Rangers just love having those guys that have that name or value.
Yeah, and they just love gathering all those big name players and no,
like
GMs never want to be wrong, even if it might be good for them right now, even if it was a good trade for their team. If he went to do well somewhere else, everyone would be like, oh, see, he would have done this with you, when even if he wouldn't, the GMs never want to seem wrong.
Like, it's very possible if Tage Thompson stayed on the Blues, he wouldn't even be in the league anymore. He might be over in Europe. I
mean, he sucked with the Blues. And then he got good in Buffalo. He wouldn't have gotten this good with St. Louis. I don't believe it.
No.
You don't get that good overnight. You get that good moving halfway across the country and working with all different people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I completely agree.
But enough about first round picks. Let's move on to our projected NHL awards.
Let's do it. Where do you want to start? So we kind of did our predictions before we hopped on here, and just the major awards. We're just making predictions on who we think can win each one. We're probably going to be wrong on most of them because it's almost impossible to predict these.
I will tell you right now, you're there. I don't see many worlds where you don't get more right than me. This is a pretty goofy looking list, if I'm honest.
Wait, do you think I'm going to get more right than you?
Probably.
Okay. All right.
One rule we did put in place is that whoever won the award last year, we're not allowed to bet on them to win it.
So basically, we just can't pick McDavid.
Yeah, you can't pick McDavid. Yeah, you can't pick. Crap, what's his name?
Pasternak.
No, I had a funny joke, but it didn't work. Who's the idiot who played for Toronto, who went to Carolina?
Bunting?
Yeah, Bunting. I was going to say you can't pick Bunting for the Calder.
Yeah.
Oh, I absolutely fumbled it. But yeah, you can't pick somebody who won the award last time.
Mm-hmm. Which one do you want to start with?
Maybe we'll save the Hart and the Lindsay for after we've done the Rocket, the Norris, and the Art Ross.
Okay.
Just because those kind of predictions can play into it. Let's start there. Let's start with the Rocket.
Oh, starting off with the big one.
Yeah.
I'll go first. I don't. This one was a kind of a toss-up, but I ended up going with Austin Matthews.
Yeah, I also went with Austin Matthews.
I think he's going to come back good this year, and I mean, there's not much really explaining behind it. Like,
he's Austin Matthews. We know he can do it.
He's kind of the next guy up there.
Matthews missed quite a few games last year, and he still hit like 40 goals.
And Toronto's team is way better than it was last year,
which is crazy because they were already a good team.
Yeah,
and Pasternak doesn't have Bergeron centering him, so it's going to be a lot harder for him to put up 61 goals or whatever he got to. So
yeah. So yeah, Matthews is the safe bet. We went with it. We're pussies. Do you want to do Selke next? We'll kind of go back and forth and pick ones.
All right.
Okay, who do you have for his Selke?
I have his wingmate, Mitch Marner.
Really?
Yeah, I think he does so well. He's so responsible defensively for how much offense he chips in. It's
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's
I see it.
it's really wild. Like most guys that are in the conversation for the Selkie are usually like 80-point guys who are good defensive centers, but like to be able to play the wing and put up the points that Marner does, and then also be able to be defensively responsible and be so good on the penalty kill, I think
Yeah,
he's got a real shot at it.
yeah. No,
I tried to avoid the what I felt like was a bit of an obvious pick, but maybe some people wouldn't
what
see
is
it as
that?
such. I've seen a lot of people thinking it's going to be Nico Hischier this year.
Okay, well that's who I picked. Was he sure?
Yeah, I figured he's
I was
if
really
you're making an
debating
actual
between him and
bet, it's
Kopitar.
probably the smart play.
I was really between Heischer and Kopitar. Um, but I ended up going with Heischer because I don't know,
Devils are on the
just
up
a
and up.
hunch feeling. Yeah,
Right.
so not much explaining to that one. Like that's kind of the obvious one, but
Yeah. Uh, Next we got the Norris. Who do you have for the defenseman of the year?
I have. I want to say Heiskanen, but I know it's based all off points, so I'm going with Makar.
Yeah, I mean, nobody's going to argue with you for saying Makar winning a Norris, right? And I think
Yeah,
he's at the point where people love his name recognition. I think if it's a tie, I think he gets the second vote. You know?
yeah, yeah, exactly. Like there was a lot of people making arguments that Makar should still win the Norris last year, even though he missed a lot of games and his point totals weren't, outstanding compared to some other guys in terms of games played and whatnot. So he's kind of
Yeah,
just a safe one to go to when guys are like, oh, I'm unsure, so I'll just like Makar's just a safe, easy pick, and no one's gonna bat an eye at it.
yeah. It's funny that you mentioned it because I did go for Miro Heiskanen.
Did you?
Yeah, he just keeps getting better, and he's so good. And
He's so good.
Dallas only seems to be getting better. Like their team just keeps improving, like all throughout. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, that top power play for them is going to be pretty crazy this year.
Yeah, yeah. I would honestly love to see Heiskanen win the Norris. I think he's a top 5 defenseman in the league. Honestly, I think he just gets overshadowed by just the love for Makar on Colorado and the love for Adam Fox. Like, don't get me wrong, they're both good players, but they get like all the attention. Like
Those
Heiskanen
two
could
get a
do
lot of the
something.
attention for
Like
sure.
Heiskanen could do something and it doesn't get noticed, but then Fox and Makar could do the exact same thing, and it's like it's talked about like crazy.
Yep.
Like, and I think a lot of it just has to do with the team they're on, and you know, Colorado just won the cup, so they're a big focus. The Rangers, I mean, it's the Rangers, so obviously, but I think it would be awesome if Heiskanen was able uh, to win that. And you know what, with Dallas, it's definitely it's a possibility.
Yeah. I'm hoping to be able to pick him up in again for fantasy this year. That's for sure.
Yeah, he's always a safe bet to go because you're at least you know what you're at least going to get out of the base out of him, and then there's so much upside.
Yeah.
Um,
You pick the next one.
fuck it. Let's do the Calder.
Yeah. Okay. This is one of the two that I have my answer, and then I actually have something in brackets beside. I'm gonna tell you my guess, and then I'll say the second part after you tell me yours.
Okay.
So for the Calder, I have Connor Bedard.
Yeah, I have Bedard too, but I feel like that one's kind of a layup. So I also do have someone else picked, just as like a
I
side one, just like because.
Yeah. I was close to saying I was thinking maybe Logan Cooley, but in brackets I put should be Adam Fantilli. I think Fantilli might have a better year than Bedard, but I think if Bedard is even close to being top rookie, that they're going to give it to him just because they love, he looks like he's going to be the next generational talent in the league, and they're going to want to pad his trophy case.
Yeah. And honestly, let's be real. If they're debating between who wins a Calder again, Chicago or again Columbus, most guys are going to lean towards Chicago. Yeah, so I've Bedard picked, but off to the side, I do have Logan Cooley was my pick.
Logan Cooley was yours. Okay.
Yeah, I think he could have a very good year with Arizona, and I think he's gonna get that opportunity to like really kind of have. He's just gonna be putting big opportunities and one of their go-to guys where he's gonna have the opportunity to really thrive. And I think up front there is enough talent with that Coyotes team that he can work with that alone, regardless of the depth, that he can still be very productive for them.
Yeah, I was very close to going with him, but I just figured Fantilli had more guys around him. Like if he can make his way into the top 6 or on the first line and play with Gaudreau, Laine, then I mean, if he's playing with those guys for at least 60 games of the year, it's his Calder to lose, really.
Yeah, exactly right.
Playing with guys that caliber.
So you got 4 to pick from here now. Because I think we're kind of saving the team ones for the end, right?
Yeah, definitely. Let's go with the Vezina, the goaltender of the year. I got a feeling I know who you're picking for this.
Yeah, and again, this one's kind of tough because a lot of it is based on a big portion of the voting comes based off wins. But I have Ilya Sorokin picked. Now, I don't know how good the Islanders are going to do. And if, Sorokin's going to have a bunch of wins, being on the Islanders, considering I do kind of have them on a wild card. I think they make the playoffs, but in a wild card spot. So that lowers his win total compared to some other guys. But I think if he puts up kind of similar numbers to what he did last year, I think he's got it. It's just because Ullmark had just an insane year last year. Like it was hard not to, be like, yeah, Ullmark's the clear guy. So I think if Sorokin can do what he did last year.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I was very close to going with Sorokin as well, just because Vasilevsky is going to be missing too much time to win an award, I think, unless he goes absolutely Super Saiyan in the last 2/3 of the year. But I was going to go with Sorokin, but then I remembered another man who's always getting overlooked, including when I made my list, and that's UC Saros.
No.
And he stole, other than McDavid, he might have won more games for his team than anyone else did in the NHL last year. Probably also outside Carlson.
I can see that, but I think, again, a big chunk of it really comes down to, how many wins does a goalie have? And I just don't see Nashville being a super good team next year. Like, I think they kind of took, one step forward, 2 steps back type of thing. So I just don't see Saros getting enough wins to really have enough people looking in his direction of that. But I mean, if he plays, if he ends up playing 65 to 70 of the games, maybe like in that 67 area, like it is possible, because then he could still, throw together potentially 30 wins and still have decent numbers. So
yeah,
like it's possible, but I just think on Nashville, I think it might be a little too tough.
Yeah, and I wasn't sure on that one because I hate that. I hate that you have to take wins into account.
I do too.
Because if a goalie is like head and shoulders better, like 0.6 save percentage better than everyone else below him, but he has 15 less wins, but he has that better save percentage in the same amount of games played, then
Yeah.
I think he was still the better goalie. His team just didn't keep up. But
I would almost rather see the NHL do something where it's like kind of similar to the Jennings Award, where it's like wins aren't really a factor in who wins the Vezina, but to be eligible, you have to play, say, 50 plus games.
yeah,
And then you just go from the goalies that all played 50 plus games and then look at kind of all their stats from there. And don't like wins can still matter to an extent. Like if you're maybe doing a tiebreak or something and one goalie's got, say, 38 wins and the other one's got 28 or something, like
yeah.
that's understandable. But wins shouldn't be a big
That should not be
focus.
one of the first things you look at, for sure.
Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah,
I completely agree.
and I know, there's probably a lot of people that would be like, should we really have a 45 or a 50 game minimum? Because then guys who are in a tandem wouldn't have the chance. And it's like, well, if you shouldn't be the 1A and have a 1B and be the Vesna winner. At that
Also, how
point,
can you
you would
say
be a 1 and a 2. Like,
Also, how can you give a goalie an award for best goalie in the league if the team he's on doesn't even recognize him as their better goalie if they have to play him in a tandem?
yeah.
Like it should
Like
be
if they start in a tandem and then they steal the show, kind of like Allmark did last year, then by all means. But if you're splitting the games 41-41, then it's hard to make that
you're
argument.
yeah, exactly right. Um, I'll let you choose which one you want between Art Ross and Hart. Jack Adams,
The
head coach
Jack
of the
Adams.
year.
I have this one is heavily tied in with my season predictions.
Okay.
And that being Craig Berube of the St. Louis Blues.
Okay.
If you'll remember, I have them making the playoffs in third in
Oh
the
yeah,
Central
no.
Division.
Oh no, I remember that.
And
I remember
so,
that very
and you
clear.
know what? That's pretty goofy. So I think if they do get up to third and make the playoffs in that division, how do you not with that team? How do you not give it to Craig Berube?
See, so I don't think he's going to. Because I don't see a world where St. Louis makes the playoffs personally.
That's fair.
Mine. So I went in a completely different approach. I went the route of I think they're again, they're going to give it to the,
The top
the
team.
coach on one of the best teams. So I went with Jay Woodcroft on Edmonton.
Mm.
And by no means do I think he's the best coach. And I personally don't even have him in my top 15, honestly.
Yeah.
But I think at the end of
It's
the day,
the
I
most
think
underrated
Edmonton.
coach award. It's not really the best coach of the year
So
award.
I really do see Edmonton having a great season and being probably the most dominant team in the West. Not the league, because we'll get into the President's Trophy later.
Yeah.
But I think Edmonton just becomes such a force. I think their power play is going to be so good. And so I think Woodcroft's going to get a lot of credit for that. And so I think he ends up and he ends up winning the Jack Adams for best coach. So not a whole lot
that's a
to
good
it. It's
guess
kind of
for sure.
a basic pick, but also kind of an outside the box one. But
It's a little bit out there, yeah. Maybe
take
not
your
as
pick.
much as Craig Berube, but
Yeah. You got your pick between the Hart or the Art Ross.
We've done some of the other big ones. I say we do the Art Ross, so that the Hart, it's kind of because surely we're probably both going to have the Hart or Lindsay winners be the same as either the Art Ross, the Rocket, or the Norris.
That's what
Most
you
likely,
think.
unless he's a madman.
I have no one winning the same award twice.
You have nobody winning the same award. You're crazy.
Well, I mean the Art Ross and the Ted Lindsay, I'm probably just gonna say they're thrown together or something because that's usually kind of just how it goes.
Yeah, I just put Hart/Lindsay for mine.
So I went with Art Ross and Oh no, never mind. Yeah, I'd Hart and Lindsay. Never mind. Yeah.
Yeah, because they're the same award, but one's voted on by the players and one's voted on by. Is it the
league.
coaches or is it like media members?
I think it's a. I think it's a. I'm not even sure. Actually, I think it's by the players. And Ted Lindsay's by the players.
The Lindsay is by the players. The
Yeah,
Hart is by
the voting committee. Like
yeah,
all
it's the media
guys.
voting committee because
Yeah,
that's the one where the one freaking goober put Pasternak first and then he had McDavid like fourth.
fifth.
That dude not only should that dude not be able to ever vote for any awards again, he shouldn't be able to vote in his country of origin at that point. Like, don't let this man make any decisions. This dude shouldn't decide what he has for breakfast in the morning. That being said, for the Art Ross, I went with Nikita Kucherov,
which is a very solid pick. I went with Leon Draisaitl.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's fair.
I was kind of between Draisaitl. Kucherov was kind of in there, but I was just like, you know what? If I can't go with McDavid, the next closest is probably gonna be Draisaitl. Like, I think that's just kind of the way it's gonna be for the next X amount of years until Chicago can put a team around Bedard, maybe. But I think as long as McDavid and Draisaitl are, every now and then playing on the same line, on the same power play out there in overtime together, like usually if one's getting a point, the other one's contributed in some way. Like that's so. Yeah, I went with the easy route behind McDavid, Draisaitl there.
Yeah, that's fair. I didn't pick Draisaitl just because it kind of felt almost like picking McDavid in a way, even though he'd be a great pick for the Art Ross, the Hart Lindsay, even the Rocket, honestly.
Yeah, like he was kind of one of the guys I was toying with for the Rocket, but I was like, you know what, I want to try and do them all differently, so
that's fair.
And then lastly, the Hart Trophy, league MVP.
For league MVP.
Spoiler, we didn't pick goalies or defensemen because they don't win them anymore. Basically goes to one of the top players, usually the guy with the most points.
It really sucks. It's too bad. Like I said earlier, honestly, the Hart Trophy finalists last year should have been McDavid, Carlson, and Saros or something like that. Like, I easily could have seen a world where it was three different positions.
I mean, all three guys were still like, I mean, McDavid and McDavid the season he had alone, but then Pasternak put up, 60 points. Tkachuk, I mean, carried that Florida team hard, not only the playoffs, but like even through the regular season. Like, it would have been cool to see Carlson get that recognition, but I understand, they usually go with guys who are in the playoffs. And I mean, the season Boston had, through Pasternak and what he did, McDavid season, Tkachuk powered Florida into the playoffs and carrying a team that struggled through a lot of injuries and concerns. Like, it would have been cool to see some other guys, but like, they couldn't. They made three excellent selections, I think. Still,
it's I hate the argument that the Hart winner has to be a guy who made the playoffs.
It makes sense though. Like, it does make sense.
I get the argument, but I just don't like it. I think Carlson did so much for the Sharks compared to what Pasternak did for the Bruins.
Yeah. Like realistically, without like Carlson as a defenseman, not only 100 points, he contributed to over 40% of the team's goals. Yeah. Like when your defenseman is a part of 40% of your team's goals, it might even be higher, honestly.
Yeah,
like it very well could have been insane. Up near that high 40s, but like, so at that point, it's like, yeah, you can make that argument, but then it's also like, I mean, they still did finish fucking fourth last in the league. I mean, without him, they're easily last place in the league. Like, and it's not even close.
Yeah.
So you can make the argument, but it was just one of those years again where it's just those three guys of Tkachuk, Pasternak, McDavid all made so much sense.
Yeah.
And San Jose doesn't get a lot of media love. There's also that. Although he did win the Norris, but we're not focusing on that. We're focusing on the Hart. Who do you have picked for the Hart? I'm
I
curious to see.
have
We might have the same guy.
written down. I have Austin Matthews.
Okay,
Uh,
so Cheeks. All right.
I have him for the Rocket and the Hart/Lindsay. I
Okay.
think I think he could have an absolute monster year. I think a lot of people are down on him just because he didn't play a full set of 82 last year, so his
Yeah.
numbers were down in general, but
I think
he
people
still
are also
scored at an
pissed
insane rate.
because people were predicting, this could be the year Matthews drops 70. It's like, no. Like, the only guy that could genuinely drop 70 is McDavid.
Yeah.
Like, and that's the only guy. And I wouldn't honestly be shocked if we don't see another 60-goal season from McDavid, though. Like, I think that maybe could have been, like, the only one he gets, because that's so hard to do, to put up 60 in the league and do it, like, constantly. Like, that's almost like McDavid dropping 60 goals is almost the equivalent, I'd say, of Carlson putting up 100 points again in back-to-back seasons. Like, it's
Yeah.
so tough to
It doesn't
do
happen. People don't like
yearly in
when
the league. Like,
people saw Matthews do it, they were like, is he going to hit 60 next year? Is he going to hit 70? I was like, dude, they don't get how hard it is. Pasternak, some people are like wondering if he can continue that. They don't know how hard it is. With McDavid, I'm actually sitting here going, I'm always the guy saying they don't get it. It's way too hard.
like, it is
McDavid is so
possible.
nuts. He
It
could
is
he could do it
possible.
if he just feels like it.
Yeah.
But maybe
And
he
that's the
feels
thing,
like
is if,
more
like,
points instead. Like it really depends if he's going to be shoot first or pass first.
yeah. And it's not even one of those things you can be like, well, now teams are going to game plan. Teams have been trying to fucking game plan him since he entered the league, and they still can't. Like,
If
if
you could just
McDavid really wants to, he could easily probably put up 60. I just realistically don't see that happening. Like, it's not that he
yeah,
doesn't want to. I just see, you know, yeah, I don't know. I just don't see him. It's just so hard to do.
yeah. And you can't game plan for guys like that. If you could just say this guy's the best, make him not score, then Gretzky wouldn't have had like 2,700 points. Like
Yeah, exactly, right.
and people were allowed to water ski and hook and all kinds of crap back then. So it's
Yeah,
just sometimes doesn't work like that.
yeah, exactly.
Um,
I went in a different route for the Hart. I went with kind of a newcomer that uh doesn't really have much, or if any, hardware. Actually, I think he might not have any hardware. I don't know. But I went with Jack Hughes.
I thought you might have. I
I
noticed a
think,
Jack Hughes hole
already
in your
considering what
list.
he did last year, and now that Devils team is only going to get better, I think it's going to be huge for him, not only on the ice but off the ice, to have his brother Luke on the team, because now that's road trips, travel with your brother, going to games with your brother, being on the same team, getting to bunk with them. I think is going to do a lot for him right there. And then not even considering just all the talent the Devils brought in, dating even back from the trade deadline to present. They've all had an off season together, training
Meyer,
camp. Like,
Toffoli, they've got
it's
a
just
stacked team.
like they have a very, very good team, and Hughes is going to be leading the charge and kind of at the centerfold of it all. So I wouldn't be shocked in the slice. He honestly, I mean, actually, I can't even say Art Ross, because like realistically, McDavid's going to win, but we can't pick him. But like, I can still see Hughes maybe getting up in there in that second spot, around maybe even ahead of Draisaitl. But I think
Yeah,
he's, if we can't go with McDavid, I think Hughes is probably runner up. And if not runner up, then he's the winner.
that's fair. I was trying to think of another answer for the Hart that I could throw out there, just because I already picked Austin Matthews and you didn't do any double ups. I could see it if he can string together a full healthy 82. I could see
Don't
it
say
going
Saros.
I was going to say Nathan McKinnon.
Oh, okay.
Play,
Yeah.
playing with Makar, Rantanen's taking his game to the next level. He
I'm just
he
curious to
scored
see.
at a really high rate. He just hasn't been able to stay healthy long enough.
And that's one of those, and that's the thing I'm worried about. Like, I know people keep going back to like, well, Landeskog's not playing. It's like Landeskog didn't fucking play like at all last year. I'm not even sure if he did play last year. I can't remember. But McDavid or McKinnon was still just fine without him. And they've got still players that can easily slot in there. And somewhat be around just as effective. So I don't see the Landeskog thing, playing
Yeah.
a role.
Landeskog was not the play driver either. Like,
It's just weird to think about. Like McKinnon's the highest paid player in the league, but it's like it just feels weird because it's like he's never been up in that, like, oh, could he win the Art Ross or maybe the Hart? Like he's never been that. I don't know. It just feels kind of weird. Like it's never felt like he's ever really been like that definitive
yeah, I think that's
three.
just mostly because of the health between obviously McDavid being there, around since he's been good, but
But like that's the
also
thing. You think about the consensus is like McDavid 1, Makar 2, or if it's not Makar, it's Draisaitl. And then at 3, then you're tossing around either the other one of Makar, Draisaitl, or Austin Matthews, Nathan McKinnon. Some people throw Kucherov in there. Like
yeah,
it just never felt like he was like that. He's always just kind of lumped in with all those guys around him type of thing. And I do think with a full healthy season, he could easily um catapult and take off into that next where he kind of separates himself from some of the other guys. But
that just kind of at the point where we need to see it happen. It's like we
yeah,
know his points per game has been insane for years now, but last year was his first 100-point season because he's just never been healthy enough. And if he
yeah,
can put it
exactly.
all together for one calendar year, then he's golden.
Yeah, I mean, like last year, 111 points in 71 games. That was the first time he ever had more than 100 points in a season, and only the second time in his career that he put up more than 40 goals in a season.
Yeah.
So I mean, like it's. But again, I guess you look at the playoffs. Like, I mean, he does have 100 points in 77 games. He does have a cup.
Yeah.
Uh, probably I would assume, maybe the captain soon. Stuff doesn't sound great around Landeskog, so if he can't come back, I see
I
McKinnon
saw
easily getting.
rumors that they're hoping he'll be back for the playoffs
I
with
heard he's
Landeskog.
completely like he's shut down for the whole season. It sounds like
Yeah.
they're taking the route of even if we make the playoffs, don't come back. You're going to take a full calendar year and just rehab, get fully healthy. So when you come back, you're good. Because the
Hmm.
last thing they want to do is it'd be like, oh, we're in the playoffs now. Like, come back in, and then he tweaks something or gets hit the wrong way, and then all of a sudden it's like, boom, careers now
Yeah.
could potentially be done. So my belief is he doesn't play at all.
I would certainly hope that they wouldn't rush him back because, or he would even rush himself back because, how competitive these guys are to try and play in the playoffs. I
And
would
I think it
definitely hope
makes it
they
a
would
little bit
take
easier.
as long as possible.
Yeah, and I think it makes it a little bit easier on the fact that they've at least won a cup now. And so they're not
Yeah.
like in that stage again, it sucks, but like where San Jose was, where it's like, our window's kind of closing, like it's now or never type of thing. Like they at least got one, and they've still got that, core of McKinnon, Branton, Makar, even Landeskog, like locked up long term, so he can still run it back with them next year, type of thing. Like it's not like he's got to rush back, and it's now or never for them, like it was a couple years ago.
Yeah.
But anyways, enough about that. What about the big ones? The big
I
awards.
think you missed one,
What did I miss?
unless you're crazy, unless
I
I'm
don't know what I
crazy.
missed. I don't know what I missed.
You missed the Lady Bing
Oh, are
trophy.
we really doing the pussy award?
Yeah, we're doing the Lady Bing trophy.
I can't even think of who's the biggest bitch off the top of my head.
Well,
Uh,
you can't pick the guy that I picked because you already said him. I'm going with Jack Hughes.
I don't even know who to go with. Give me uh they usually only pick forwards for this.
Yeah, well, they're all
Um
guys with like a low amount of penalty minutes, right? And you just end up with more as a defenseman, I think.
yeah, I can't even think of anyone off the top of my head. I don't know. Give me Johnny Gaudreau. He's a
That's not a
safe
bad pick.
option for it. I know it's a word I don't know. I get it, but at the same time it's like I don't know. It's just one of those weird ones.
Yeah.
It's basically like, hey, you're the nice guy. You're not getting in there like you're. I know. It's just. Yeah,
There's
it's
not a
just
lot
a
of
weird
people
one.
that feel neutral about it. It's people who are either like, it's the award that means you're not trying hard enough for your team, you're not getting in there, or the people who are like, yeah, it just means he's like a good dude and he's got sportsmanship.
But like, you can still be a good dude and mix it up when need be. Like, it basically means if you win that, you're the guy when. Again, like, it's like your teammate gets run or something, and you're out there. You're the one turning a blind eye to it, or if your team's getting rocked 8-1, and you know you're not getting in there mixing up to try and spark something or whatever. And it's just one of those guys that's seems to watch on the sidelines when things get tough, almost type of thing.
Which is actually really interesting because Braden Point was a finalist for it last year, and he had a total of 7 penalty minutes last year. He had a fight against future teammate Michael Acimont, and then he also had like a tripping penalty or whatever the other minor was.
Yeah.
But I was so surprised at the end of the year to see how few penalties he had, because he is one of those guys that's often in there shoving people. But I guess when you got Pat Maroon, Corey Perry, Sergachev, they're not going to give a penalty to every guy on the ice.
Yeah, exactly.
And they're only giving it to the tough customers who are making the biggest deal of it. So
yeah,
I still can't believe they gave it to Kopitar. Like, just looking at the numbers, it clearly should have been either Hughes or Point. Like, I didn't care which one of them it was, but Kopitar was like 25 points behind both of them.
Yeah, but they also got to take his defensive game into account because that is a part of it.
Maybe it is.
Oh no, I don't really care enough about the award to know what it's fully based on. But
best type of sportsmanship and gentlemanly conduct combined with a high standard of playing ability. Yeah, that would include defensive play.
So if you take Kopitar's defense, like, it makes sense.
Honestly, that should include defensemen a little more as well, considering that. So you could throw a Slavin in there.
I also wouldn't be surprised if like that Lady Byng was kind of like a consolation prize for Kopitar for not winning the Selke game because of Bergeron. Like, I very well could see that guys are like, well, I didn't give him my number one pick for the Selke, so I'll just make it up to him by throwing him down first on this one. That could very well be.
Yeah, I don't doubt that at all.
But to wrap it up for this one before we hop off here, we've got who we think will win the President's Trophy and then the Stanley Cup for this season. We already kind of did our predictions for who we think is going to make the playoffs and who's going to miss in our 4 episodes, doing a division by division breakdown. If you want to know what teams you have making the playoffs and missing, you can always feel free to go back to those and give a listen to see how we have that shaken up. But President's Trophy, who do you got here for it? Number one team in the league, I might add.
So I had my pick, and then I just scrolled down and realized I didn't even have them first in their division in our predictions. So I'm gonna switch it to who I had first in that division, and that is the New Jersey Devils.
Okay, so I also do have the New Jersey Devils winning the President's Trophy. I've been kind of glazing them.
I was pretty confident that you would have Carolina, which is what I did pick.
No, before. I've got New Jersey finishing above Carolina. Spoiler alert for that one, but yeah. I mean, it's they were so good last year. I think given the additions they've brought in, and now they're gonna have a fully healthy Timo Meier as well, who's already now been with the team all off season. He's got his number 28 back, like you mentioned before. I mean, yeah, and then there's still the possibility that maybe they bring in like a Connor Hellebuck or something. If he's not sticking around Winnipeg, it sounds like New Jersey's kind of the clear option.
That would be such an insane team if they added a guy like Hellebuck.
Yeah, like I think it just makes the most sense for the Devils, unless maybe a Dallas or an Edmonton really takes off. Yeah. I don't know. Kind of just a safe pick.
I was very close to going Toronto over Carolina when I was making my first pick. I think Toronto is going to finish right up there in the top of the league again.
I think they're going to be high up, but I also think just due to their
they lose enough games every year to torment their fan base that I can't see them winning the President's Trophy as easily.
Yeah, it's just one of those teams where it really comes down to just those, 4, 5, 6 games they lose in the season. It's like they should have won and they outplayed their opponent, but they didn't get the win. Like that's just a common thing for the Leafs every year. And so I think that honestly is probably what ends up separating them from, winning the President's Trophy to not, is just those few games that they should have won, but just didn't.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, the amount of games they lose to the Coyotes, the Ducks, Buffalo. Like Buffalo's better now, but they lose to a lot of the bottom feeder teams, which is it's almost an art form the way they do it.
And really, like every team can make a solid case for them being in the playoffs in that division, probably except for Montreal. But we've even seen in the past that Montreal can upset Toronto. So
yeah. And all we got left, the Stanley Cup.
Yeah.
Burundi, who do you have winning the cup this year?
So last year, Boss won the President's Trophy, right?
Yeah.
And we've seen the trend of like where teams win the President's Trophy, lose early in the playoffs, and they come back the following year and win the cup.
Yep.
So with that said,
you're not picking
taking that into account, I'm going with the current President's Trophy winner at the time wins the cup that year. I'm also picking the Devils to win the cup this year.
That's fair. I know you already have them.
I'm fucking going with Boston.
Obviously, you said you picked the Devils for the Presidents, and I know you've already, ever since the Timo Meier trade, you've had them penciled in to make at least the Eastern Conference Finals, because I know you want that first.
Anything short of the Eastern Conference Finals for this team is an L. Like, there's no reason that...
Especially since they made it out of the first round last year against a really good Rangers team.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like they finally made the playoffs last year and then lost out in the first round in 5. They
lost to Carolina, who got shelled, like just got wrecked by Florida. Like, I think New Jersey would have put up a good fight against Florida.
Surely a better fight at least, but
honestly, I think if New Jersey knocks off Carolina, I think New Jersey probably ends up actually beating Florida. I think New Jersey was like the perfect matchup to take down Florida in that Eastern Conference.
It's definitely possible.
But yeah, so I do have the Devils winning both the President's Trophy and the Cup this year, kind of breaking that President's Trophy curse.
I wouldn't mind seeing it. Not only do I like the Devils, but I hate that curse talk. Like, it's 16 teams make the playoffs. So even if you're the best team, it's really freaking hard to win the cup.
It's also literally the hardest, and people say all the time, it's the hardest trophy to win in all of sports.
Yeah,
so
easily.
You can expect the best regular season team to win every year. Like, that's outrageous.
If you look at the stats, more than a 16th of the time, they win the cup. So they have better odds than other people do, generally. It's
and
just
the way I view it,
there's a trophy and they don't win it all the time, so they make a thing out of it.
And I've always said this from the beginning, and it's even easier to back up now looking at, when the LA Kings won the cup, or even the Florida Panthers last year. Once the NHL playoff starts and it's all set, in my opinion, every single team has an equal chance of winning. And like, I know it's like, well, yeah, technically, but it's like, genuinely, any team can go on a hot run right at the time of playoffs and win the cup.
Yeah,
and you could be the very best team in the regular season or one of the best teams in the league and didn't win the President's Trophy, and you can just hit a wall, hit a hot goalie, go have your top player go through a cold streak or something in the playoffs. Like, it's any team in there can win. So I agree. I think the President's Trophy curse is it's just
2019, St. Louis
silly.
barely squeaks in, and
Yeah, we don't care about
they
that.
were the
though.
worst team in the league in January.
Yeah, we don't care about the Blues.
They squeak in, and they get on a hot streak, and they win. Like it's.
But yeah, exactly though, right? Like it's all it takes is to just everybody on the same page at the same time, get hot, get the juices going, and you're set. But
Get the good
aside
bounces.
from all that, who do you have picked for the cup this year?
So this is the other one there where I have a team in brackets. I figured you'd just want another answer because my pick is the Tampa Bay Lightning.
Well, yeah, of course it is.
Because I believe that the boys are going to run it back. Going to go for our third in 4 years.
I see Tampa
It would
Bay
be third and 5. But
realistically, I end up seeing Tampa Bay like second, maybe third round. I don't know exactly how that. I mean, I know one way or another they're finishing probably. I mean, I think Toronto finishes top of the Atlantic Division. I think Tampa either finishes second or third. So like it's very realistic for them to completely come out of that division and into the Eastern Finals. But I think they're in a tough spot with whoever they're matched up against, whether it's Carolina, maybe the Rangers, the Devils, like even the Penguins, maybe like they're kind of doing a one last dance with their veterans. So it's tough though. It's tough to predict when you really look at all the teams.
It's so hard to tell, and you know, a lot of people weren't picking Florida, but like Florida's got a good team. You know, if you get into the playoffs, you have a good team, and it's really hard to pick between a lot of them. I have my second pick here just because we'll call it a homer take and a non-homer take. But the other team I picked, coming out of the West, the Edmonton Oilers.
Okay, so I did toss around. I honestly do. If I had to make a prediction right now, I think the Cup final probably will be the Oilers and the Devils.
Yeah,
and then I think
that would
at
be
the
a
end of the day,
fun series.
I think it really just comes down to goaltending. I think even defensively, I think New Jersey's going to have the edge, especially with Dougie Hamilton, Luke Hughes coming in. I think Simon Nemec probably plays a big role this season. So I kind of think goaltending and defense are kind of what tips it in New Jersey's favor in the end over the Oilers. But I think that would just be a hell of a series.
That series would just be, even if it's not great, quote unquote hockey, especially playoff hockey, it would be so fun to watch. Like,
it'd be so fun.
Like guys like Jack Hughes and those young guys on the Devils just flying all over the place. High flying offense, McDavid, Draisaitl, that whole power play. And then you don't even have great goalies on either side, which means it's going to be a high scoring series. That would be a lot of fun.
Yeah, that would be one of the most exciting Stanley Cup finals we've got in recent years. Because we really haven't had a cup final since, probably the most exciting one. And I know which ones are exciting for you, obviously. But in terms of just hockey fans in general, the most exciting one by far in recent years we've got was St. Louis and Boston.
Oh, I was going to say Tampa and Colorado. Because obviously I like the other two more because it was a lot more fun for me to watch because we won. But
that was good, but like just you got like everything you possibly could have wanted out of that Boston St. Louis series. Like it just had, and not only like not even the fact it went to Game 7, like which is awesome, but just every game was just like the teams just hated each other and some of the hits and all that. Like it was such entertaining hockey and like I don't know. I just want to get something like that again, but
that's fair. It sucks because that's almost every playoff round in like the first round of the Eastern Conference. Like, man, that Tampa Toronto series was electric. Like, that should have been an Eastern Conference final. It sucks that we had to play each other in the first.
So we've got a couple minutes here before we wrap it up. I'm gonna ask you this to kind of wrap this one up here.
A Lady Bing runner-up.
How would you do the NHL playoffs if you couldn't pick? If you got to decide how the playoffs were formatted, how would you do it?
I think that you do the top. Do you do top three? I would even say just do the top two in each division. So I'll use the East for an example. Do the top two. So the top two teams in the Atlantic and the Metro both make the playoffs, obviously. And then the next four by points or point percentage um, would also make the playoffs. And then 1 versus 8, 2 versus 7.
Okay.
I
Okay.
I don't know if that's the perfect system, but I definitely think it's better than what they're currently doing.
Yeah. So
And plus, then you could get
which is a way that
you could get
works.
the Metro versus the Atlantic in the first round. You could get those going instead of just the same ones. Because I get that they want to build up rivalries within the same division, but
But it's
realistically,
just
it just makes the fans sick of seeing each other in the playoffs.
yeah.
They want something new. They want a new rivalry.
Like it was cool when when they created this format. It was like, yo, we're gonna get like the battle of Crosby and Ovechkin in the playoffs. But when we reached its fourth and fifth time, it was just like we're kind of just over it at this point now.
Yeah. And
I
how cool would it be to see those teams face in the second or third round?
Yeah,
Like maybe
exactly.
that feels a little different than in the first round. Now you've got some storylines going. Crosby's been on this insane streak and Ovechkin has only scored twice in his last six. Like, you could have all kinds of things going on at that point, and
Yeah,
it would just be nice to see a little more variety in the matchups.
yeah. The way I would do it, and I know this way's never gonna happen, but a fun way to do it would be you still take the top three teams from each division.
Yeah.
And then you still got your wild card, but you take the top four. And so now you get a little more incentive. Like if you're a divisional, winner in that one of those top three spots, you get a small bit of a buy. And then you take, 7 versus 10 and 8 versus 9 in both conferences. And you do like a wild card thing where it's the two teams play, it's a best 2 out of 3, and then whichever teams win, say, team 7 beats 10 and then 9 beats 8, then you put them in there with those other 6 teams that have that small buy, and then based on point totals you do 1 to 8, and then you do it that way. Because I really do just like the idea of having that small little like wild card thing.
Yeah, kind of a play-in round almost.
Yeah, I thought that was one of those really cool things I like from the bubble. It was a little bit bigger, and it kind of took away a little bit when you've got those teams that are already in the playoffs still playing, and determining their seeding was kind of goofy to have in the middle of it. But I think if you did like, again, both sides 7 versus 10, 8, 9, you can just roll, however many days of constant like good hockey. Like you could get 6 days out of it where you do whatever Eastern one first, and then right after that you've got the West one, and you ping pong that back for a couple days. Like you could get a good amount of views on those and people interested and engaged, because like it's the only hockey game on right now. It's a best 2 out of 3 series. I think that could be great for the league, and it uh, just opens up the door a little bit more to maybe it's like that's crazy. The number 10 team came out of the wild card, they go up against the number 1 team and knock them off or something like that. I think that'd just be really cool.
Yeah, I think
I don't ever see that happening. I don't see the league ever expanding past traditional eight teams in their quote unquote
8 versus
playoffs.
8.
So
Yeah. And yeah, I think that'd be a neat idea to see. A little part of me would be fine if we never saw it, if only to protect the incredible record that Vasilevsky has for most wins in a playoff run of 18.
Yeah.
Because he won 2 during the play-in round of the 2 basically exhibition games. So it's like a 100-way tie for second place with 16 wins, because that's how many it takes to win a regular cup. And then because of the bubble, Vasi has 18 wins, which always just looks so funny whenever I see it on Stats Hockey or whatever website.
Realistically, the NHL is never going to go past their 8 teams are in, but I mean, if making money is what they really care about, by the way they're going with all these ads and whatnot, you could, either that or just get one of your, get whoever to just start dating Taylor Swift, and then boom, the NHL becomes the most popular league in the world. But someone's got to get on that. Maybe Cole Caulfield or something. He seems like the type of guy to.
Riz Caulfield.
Yeah. But anyways, I don't have anything else to add. I don't know. Did you have anything, or we shutting this one down?
Not really. I could start reading off like the history of Lady Byng Trophy winners.
No, I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. But yeah, this was officially now the last episode we're doing here before the regular season starts. The first regular season we'll be covering, with this podcast. Got through the off season, excited for the regular season. I think we've got a lot of cool stuff we have planned kind of throughout the course of the year. Stuff we'll kind of get into and whatnot when the time arises. We'll leave you all with that little cliffhanger. But yeah, next week we'll actually have some regular season hockey to talk about, maybe some big stuff that happens, near the end of training camps, maybe some surprise guys on waivers or something, maybe some trades potentially, who knows? But there should be no shortage of stuff for us to talk about next week, I think.
Yeah, we might even do more than one episode a week every once in a while. Nothing, secured into a schedule or anything, but if something massive happens and we're both free and we can do a shorter episode or something on it, you know what? There's a lot more stuff to cover when the season's actually going on, so
yeah, exactly, right, for sure.
Might be some more episodes coming out here soon than there have been.
Yeah, I completely agree. It'll be interesting to see how it all kind of plays out and what it ends up looking like as we kind of get into it. But I guess with that being said, thank you to everybody for listening, your constant support. We will be here same time next week for you. Yeah, I don't know. Any last thing you want to say before we sign off here?
No, I think you've heard enough about the Lady Byng for me.
Yeah, fuck the Lady Byng. But whoever wins it, congrats on a nothing award.
Jacob Slavin won the Lady Byng in 2021. Look at that.
Yeah, it says a lot.
It does go to the defenseman sometimes.
Yeah, thanks to everybody for listening, and we will catch you guys all next week.